Hello and welcome back to the Dance of the Dragons. My name is Ebube and you are listening to Popcorn for Dinner. We're checking back in Westeros because things are really, really heating up. And we're here at the right time. You joined us at the right time because war is brewing, tensions are high, and there are quite a few platinum haired, very, very angry people riding flying lizards that we need to talk about today. I'm not going to do this alone, though. I am joined by my good friend, the one and only Fami. How
What
are we
up?
feeling today?
I keep trying to process the fact that it's been almost 2 years since we last.
They really did that to us.
Yeah, I'm not surprised though. It's in the theme of George R. R. Martin's work. Things always just seem to take a little longer.
He needs to drop that behavior for this. You're right though, because he's one of the co-creators of the show this time, and he does write on this show. So maybe we should have expected that, but it's okay. They have a
Yeah,
higher
but
budget, and as long as they make it worth our while, then we won't complain too much.
yeah, one episode in, and I can see all the money being spent. I feel like the end of last season ended with not as many dragons, and I feel like we saw most of the dragons this season, or at least the big ones. And that's an exciting way to start the season, always.
Yeah. Watch how this series will still find a way to end before One Piece.
One
Um
Piece is never ending. That's a lot order. He's not ending it.
okay. Well, first of all, I guess what are your general thoughts on, the end of with the end of season one and how this one picks up. I mean, we have quite a lot to look at because it's been some time. So I guess my first question for you is: do you think they started at a good point? It looks to me as though it's been about 2 weeks since Viserys died, maybe like 7 to 10 days since Lucerys was chomped. So everybody is still in a bit of a grieving mood on all sides. So how do you think it was in terms of picking up the tone? Like, do you think it was a bit of a slow start, which is like a good first episode? Like, how are we feeling?
I think it almost felt like it never went on break. I felt like I was watching. You said, maybe 2 weeks since Viserys died. Honestly, to
Hmm.
me, it seemed like a week since Viserys died. I
Oh.
rewatched the last episode just to kind of, or the last three episodes, just to get my head in the House of the Dragon phase. And just watching this episode literally just felt like, oh, Lucerys just died, and then the Ravens went out to tell everyone, and
Hmm.
then the episode starts obviously with Jace getting his letter that got sent out, and notice further. So it takes a while for messages to get to the wall, but it really feels like I'm just, a week out from where we left things at the end of last season, which is exciting.
I think they did a good job with that. I think in the way they set this pensive tone, starting off with our very honorable friends in the north was an interesting choice. I mean, I saw that Raven flying, I was
Very.
like, okay, I know where we're going. I
Winterfell.
know where we're going. What was it like to see Winterfell again?
I think, I knew it was Winterfell, but like I don't remember the last time I saw Winterfell without it being snowed out. So for a
Yeah.
second I was like, no way, no way. And then I just saw it, and this is Winterfell. And
Like
this is a
literally, as soon
slightly
as you see the
different.
castle, there's just like snow from the castle
Exactly.
onwards. It's like
Onwards,
wow.
exactly. And it's a slightly different Winterfell from the Winterfell we know and love, because by the time Game of Thrones starts, when Ned Stark is the Warden of the North, he's married to Catelyn Stark,
Yeah.
and he builds her a sept. So this is a Winterfell that was still very much true to the old gods that are worshipped in the
Hmm.
North before the Southerners came and started to change things. So it's good to be home with that beautiful Winterfell accent. Warm the fire in my heart.
Yeah. Our dude Cregan Stark. It was interesting to finally see him. I
Mhm.
know that there's probably a lot that's been happening with the Starks, actually since the beginning of House of the Dragon, but we wouldn't really know because all those things that happened with them were going on during the time skips that we had in season one. So it's not a lot that we would have been able to really see. Having said that, though, I'm I think they cast the role well. Honestly, I think dude is doing an amazing job already. Like he literally sound like you hear this guy talk, and it's like, yep, I know Ned Stark is descended from this guy. I know Jon Snow is descended from this guy. Like they literally have the same look, the same vibe, the same speech patterns, even the same mode of thinking. Like when he got that letter and he read it, and then he looked at this guy, is like, what's going on? I'm just like, oh my god, this is crazy. This is
Yeah.
it was cool to see that. What do you think? I guess without going into spoiler territory for now, what do you think we can expect from Mr. Stark?
Well, I think first of all, putting introducing the stars not in season one but season two is I think on brand what I feel like I'm going to expect for the rest of the show. The Game of Thrones was all about the Starks, and now they get introduced at the end, but it only
Hmm.
further helps highlight the fact that the North is really far from all the Seven Kingdoms. So I feel like the impact they're gonna have on the story is gonna come later because they're just so far removed from everything that it takes a while, but winter will come and the North will be there some at some point. I'm excited to see it. It's obviously like my favorite house. The direwolves are amazing and the Starks are badass, and it was really nice to see Ice because obviously we know
Hmm.
at the end of season one, Ice at the end of season one, yeah, Ice gets destroyed and turned into Widow's Maker and Oathkeeper. Um,
Oh my
but it
god,
was nice to see Ice. Ice, by the way, is the Valyrian sword of the Starks. It's a very big, great sword.
I cannot
Valyrian steel
believe they
sword.
I cannot believe they did that. But anyway, uh, I think there were like some interesting parallels in this episode. We saw, Cregan and Jaceres standing above the precipice of the wall, right? The same way that John did with Benjen, the same way John did with Tyrion, and actually the same way Daenerys did with Davos,
Mm.
and a bunch of other people too. I mean, even the old king Jaehaerys and his wife Alicent. I think this whole thing of showing up to the wall to see what really lies beyond is an interesting concept, and I think it reminds us of the threat that lies to the north, because obviously at this point it's like this is just like what 150-ish years ago. So it's almost as though right now this is like yesterday to the Night King, based on how long he's been around, right? So he's just preparing for what's about to happen in the original series. And I think it's cool to
Yeah.
see that, because the Starks definitely are aware. And I think that on some level Jaceres is going to become aware too, because we know that there is a prophecy that we talked about in season 1. And as far as our prophecy is concerned, being passed down from king to heir for generations, Rhaenyra, knowing it now, she's probably going to pass it down to Jaceres because he is her heir, right? So I think there are actually even points in the book where Viserys was reported as telling Jaceres, like, you're going to, like, this is going to be your seat one day. I think he saw that, and I know we've talked a lot in season 1 as to how Viserys believed a lot of things as to how Rhaenyra should succeed him, but did nothing to make sure that that happened. So we're deciding whether or not we've forgiven him, but it is what it is for now. But I think it's cool that Jaceres is actually seeing this, because when he does learn of that stuff, I think certain things are going to click in his head. Because Kragan
Yeah.
does say that when Jaehaerys and Alicent came, Alicent, by the way, not Alicent Hightower. Just bear with me here, people. So when Jaehaerys and Alicent came to the wall, their dragons did not really want to cross that threshold. Um, and we know why, right? I think later on, certain things were as magic was starting to sort of disappear from the world, maybe certain things changed, but the world definitely still had that power. The dragons definitely knew there was some stuff there that they did not want anything to do with. So I think it'll be interesting to see how they continue to handle this whole idea of what's going on up north, and if it's going to have any bearing on the things that happen in the war in the south. Because I think it's safe to say that war is definitely going to happen, right?
Well, I mean, there could always be peaceful negotiations. There could be.
Okay.
I'm kidding.
uh,
Well, obviously, we know how the episode ends, and all that is gone. I feel like Rhaenyra, but Let's come back to Blood and Cheese. Oh, by the way, Blood and Cheese is what is known in the Song of Ice and Fire universe as the two people who killed the prince at the that fateful night while they were looking for Aemon. But we've gone a bit too far. Just to roll things back all the way to the beginning. There's a new theme. There's a new intro. They swapped the music. Obviously stays the same. Every time I hear the Game of Thrones music, I always get so hyped. But they took away the
It's a
theme of
very
blood.
effective song.
Yeah, it's a very effective song, and but they took away the theme of blood and they put a bunch of tapestries. And as we know, one of my co-hosts was obsessed with the tapestries last season. So how
Look,
do you
man,
feel?
tapestries are great. Let's just get that out of the way. Like, it is nice when there is good art on the wall. It's nice when it's well made, and it's nice when it tells a story. And it turns out that these people are doing that. Ryan Condal was saying that in terms of what they did before with the blood pouring throughout the Valerian freehold and traveling, they did that to show everyone from Aegon the Conqueror right down to the people that we're seeing today, right? It doesn't really go very much past that. That would be a lot of people and a lot of blood. But because, with the original series, they would add new locations every time with that whole kind of, I guess you'd call it like a woodwork that was coming to life. it
Mm,
would it would show those new locations. It would show where people would be throughout the episodes, throughout the seasons, and that's how it evolved over time. And then in season 8, they changed it a little bit to show the north, the cold encroaching in, and that was nice. And you also saw when places had been destroyed. It was really cool to see how they use that to ground you in the story. But they
mhm.
couldn't do that as much with the original intro for House of the Dragon here visually, because if that one is about bloodlines spreading and people being born, everyone that is relevant in the story is essentially born already at the end of season 1, right? So there's only so much that they can keep doing with that if they wanted to evolve it. So I think using the idea of a tapestry to tell the story is a very cool way of changing the tone from it, because now it's like, we are looking at this from essentially the future. Like, we're because the book that this is based on is written as a history book. So I think that, looking at this with that perspective and seeing what happened as a picture where the characters have not actually seen that picture is interesting, because it gives us a sense of dramatic irony. In the original series, that's not something they would have done as much, because it didn't really feel like that was a history book in a sense. It felt like everything was happening, like,
Exactly.
on a day by day basis, and we were getting shocked with things. Whereas here we can see patterns even from the beginning, right? They had Rhaenyra talking from the future to say, this is what happened, this is how my father became king, all that stuff. So I think they want us to see this as a look into a different era. So I would imagine that this is what the tapestries would tell in terms of story, maybe even 100 years from now, as to how things went down. So we'll see if they evolve this tapestry and everything and keep adding to it. That could be cool. So
Yeah,
yes,
it
I am
definitely
happy
will be
about the
cool.
tapestry.
No, I knew you would be, but I think it definitely will be cool. I think one of the things I look forward to when the new episode comes out is to see how the theme visuals change as the story changes. Obviously,
Hmm.
watching this Winterfell come back to the Stark hands at the end of the Battle of the Bastards in season 6, and watching the Bolton banners come down and see the Stark die will come up is probably one of the happiest I felt watching Game of Thrones. It was better than Ramsay dying. It was better than John being free at the end. It was better
Hmm.
than all of that. Better than seeing Ghost survived, which whew, that was a scary one. But yeah, so when we leave, I do feel the need to point out that this is one of the last times we will see a Targaryen at the wall, because
Hmm.
after Jacaerys, well, Jacaerys is technically a strong, but
It's
allegedly.
it's okay. We accept him. We
But
accept him.
Jacaerys Targaryen is one of the would be one of the last Targaryens to come to the wall. The next Targaryen to come after him would be about 100 years when Maester Aemon comes, and then Jon Snow comes, and then Daenerys comes to save Jon, and then no more Targaryens.
Yeah, and that's even speaking technically, right? Like we're talking about people with that last name, with that noble bloodline. Whereas we did have some people who were a little bit off to the side, but still made a lot of impact that came to the wall, like Mr. Brendan Rivers, right?
Oh my gosh, I
Who,
forgot about him.
yeah, oh
I
yeah,
forgot
that
about
dude,
Blood
like,
River.
yeah, he showed up, and for anybody who doesn't know, Brendan Rivers, also known as Blood Raven, is a Targaryen bastard born in the Riverlands. He was very instrumental in a different large scale Targaryen war that happens after this one that we're covering in this series. And long story short, he goes on to become the Three Eyed Raven. So we've actually seen quite a lot of him in the original series. And you're probably wondering that would make him very old, right? Yes, it does. This is magic. Just
Yeah.
leave the magic to these people, and it's just eat your vegetables.
Yeah.
So I guess let's dial things back to the structure of the episode itself. Alan Taylor directed this one, and we really, really love his work. I mean, I know he's directed a lot of episodes from the original series. Um, I think he was the one who directed Baylor, right? Season one,
Yep.
episode 9 of
Yep.
Game of Thrones,
Mhm.
which that is probably the episode that changed everything in Game of Thrones. I think that was the episode that told people this is not a game you sign up for.
Yeah. That
Oh
episode
my
was.
god!
I still remember just being like, "Wow, they just
You're
did
like,
that.
wow, oh, y'all just gonna.
They just did that.
Oh
They
my god!
just
Like
did that."
watching that show and getting to that point and the way TV has spoiled people, right? You're just like, yeah, there's no way Ned Stark is dying. There's no way.
No
Like
way.
this is the main character. Then they go on to have 8 seasons without the guy, and it's just like that's how you
Uh,
knew that, like, okay, these people are not playing any games, and I think that was fun. But yeah, he's done a lot of good work, and I think this episode is structured in a way that makes a lot of sense for where we are right now. It's very character focused, and I think Alan Taylor tends to be very good at that. We see a lot of different areas in the world, and we kind of are starting to, you know, excuse me, but weave a tapestry to come from, like, yeah, yeah, I know, I couldn't resist. To come from all the different sides of the continent, and to show all the different allegiances, all the different motivations, and definitely everything will come to a head at some point. But I like how they're introducing us to the new people little by little. They're giving us a sense of what everybody wants. Who's mad at who, even people on the same side, right? If you ask me, the Greens have no idea what they're doing. But I'm just a guy on the internet. Nobody needs to pay too much attention to my quote unquote biased opinion, even though I'm right. The Greens have no idea what they are doing. I'm sitting here wearing black for a reason. So I'm going to say that um, them showing us all the different new relationships was very effective because, okay, let's, for example, talk about one of the major ones that people might find a little surprising: the relationship between Alicent and Christian Cole, or Christian Pussy Cole as we like to call him, who is now apparently living up to his name.
Bruh,
I'm like, I'm
that
just
man,
just wow.
that man. I wonder if he's gonna like turn against Allison for if she doesn't decide to give up her throne or her crown and follow. Ugh,
What
that
an
man.
idiot. Just
Bad belly vibes all the way through,
he
man.
he's
All
just
the
he's
way
so
through.
hurt, and it just gives credence to the whole idea of like hurt people, because bro, relax, it's okay, you know, like it's fine. And like he's just been living this life of anger for essentially decades now, and him having a physical relationship with Alicent now is interesting to me, because it makes me wonder, like, how long has it been going on? If it's been 10 to 14 days since Viserys died, right? Have they been doing this whole time, or
Hundred
like
percent, a
or
thousand
like did it
percent.
just start in the past 2 weeks?
Honestly, I feel like it's been going on for a minute because, like, I don't know. Part of me is getting a bit tinfoil hatty. Like, is does what's his name? Clubfoot. Does Clubfoot secretly like this? Well, actually, no. I think it
He
might be
doesn't know
because
yet, or maybe
yeah,
or
yeah.
maybe he's pretending not to know for now. I don't think he
I think
knows
he's
yet.
starting to suspect
Is that
because I
just
feel
something's
like
going on, or he
yeah, I
doesn't know
think
what it
like
could be?
exactly. I think if it was Hopwood is the kind of person that would have found out eventually. Like, so he'd have found out a lot sooner, and I feel like he's starting to suspect. But yeah, it's so hypocritical. And she's like, "Oh, this is the last time." I was like, "Bruh, this is not the last time."
This is not the last. As soon as she said it, oh, we can't do this anymore. I'm just like, okay, all right.
Oh, shit, we haven't heard that before.
I
Oh
think
my god.
I think him sort of having that kind of relationship, especially based on where we know he's going to go in the story, is is it holds some I'm going to say some ominous bearing for the role that he will play in the life of Aegon. Um, because you have to remember, right? These people, I mean, these are all very young looking, attractive people. But like, if we put things in perspective, right? Time has passed, right?
Yeah.
Kristen is older than Allison. He's older than Rhaenyra, right? So even though he kind of looks the same, he's been around for a while here. Even someone like Collis Velaryon, at this point in the books, he's like 73 years old.
Mm,
I think they've tried to give us a bit of a sense of that by showing him, having recovered from his injuries, he's walking around with the cane now, and he has a bit of a gait to him, and he looks tired most of the time, which I think is great. I think it's nice to sort of portray him that way so that we can see that you know the years have he's essentially had his time, and now he's just trying to help the new generation go forward. And Corliss is actually himself, in fact, is going through a lot, right?
yeah.
Because he didn't just lose Lucerys; he lost the heir to Driftmark. He lost the person who was supposed to take over from him,
Yeah.
and that's
Yeah.
that's definitely a lot.
I feel like Lucerys's absent was so it's weird because the whole of last season I felt like I understand all the decisions in the time skips and everything, but one of the unfortunate casualties of that is that you don't feel, Lucer. I felt like, okay, Lucerys died. I'm like, oh, okay, but like in this episode, I feel like just seeing the interaction of, like, first of all, seeing Rhaenyra. We haven't mentioned her this whole episode, but
Hmm.
watching Rhaenyra grieve her child, watching Jace embrace, Rhaenyra after, coming back and sharing that like loss together. I think it was
Yeah,
the first time I started to actually feel Lucerys's loss, because in the last season I was like, oh, that motherfucker got chomped, but like it didn't hit as hard, and that
but
was,
now
I
you're
guess, one of
seeing
the
Rhaenyra
critiques.
camping out, like at
Exactly,
Storm's End, just
exactly.
waiting for pieces of her son's body to wash up.
To wash
That
up,
is
exactly.
crazy.
Exactly. It hit home, and I think that was one of the critiques that I had of the original season towards the end. It's like, why was a character like Danny's death less impactful to me, as there wasn't any of that character who tried to take Arya out of take her to the north. The guy who rescued her from Baylor statue, Yoren or Yorick or
Oh
something like
yeah,
that. I can't remember. But
it's
why
it's
is
Yoren.
that
Yoren, yeah.
character Yoren? Yeah, why is that character's death sadder to me, that or the Blackfish sadder to me than Daenerys
Hmm.
Targaryen dying? But I feel like they did a kind of a better job at just like, okay, making you mourn the loss of Lucerys, and Daemon in typical fashion is just walking up to everybody being like, "You should have killed them. You should have killed them. You should have killed them. Let's go
Hmm.
kill Vhagar." Like, it's easy to go kill Vhagar.
He's crazy. He's
Uh,
like, yeah, with the Melis and Caraxes, we should be able to kill Vega. I'm like, you're here. Leave it to this guy to be the one person who's casually talking about killing dragons. Like, bro,
hmm
get your head out of your ass. Like, what are you talking about? To be
And
fair,
not just killing,
Melis
not just
is
killing Vhagar.
yeah, Vhagar is the strongest dragon that they have, or the oldest anyway. If I had to, I mean, if I was a betting man, I'd probably put my money on Vermithor. But thoughts on Vermithor later, I guess. So we'll
Yeah.
find out more about what's going on with that as the episodes go on. But based on what we know now, I think on some level they might have a chance
Who
because
might have a chance?
assuming they did try to take out Vigor, because Melis is known as
Oh, okay.
basically the fastest dragon that they have, and Caraxes
Mm.
is very nimble, very serpentine, um, and very irritable. So it's possible that the two of them together might be able to give Vigor a run for her money, but who knows? There's a lot that we'll still see. I think as far as um, I guess the intentions of people who are hurt in this story are concerned, right? Damon is he wants blood, but I think that he's still willing to do it on behalf of Rhaenyra rather than himself. I mean, we see how he reacts when she finally shows up, and then she goes, "I want Aemond," right? And then like he hears that, and immediately he's just like, "Okay," and then he goes to
Dead,
King's Landing, and it's like,
dead.
he's like,
Dude,
"Let's go get this dude."
wait, first of all, he didn't just go to King's Landing. What was he wearing?
He went to his murder cloak. Yes,
Wait,
he went,
he went to his
the guy
murder
wore his
clothes,
murder
man.
hoodie. Yeah, yeah.
Every time you see him, once I saw that, I was like, oh, I know what's happening.
Literally, every time you see this guy in that hoodie, something bad, something
It's gonna
crazy, something
happen.
questionable is going to happen.
How,
But
do you feel like Rhaenyra would have sanctioned that hit?
oof. I think so. At that moment in time, probably.
Mm.
Because I think right now they're on this thing of a son for a son, which, by the way, is the title of the episode, right? It's blood for blood at this point. One could say that. I mean, we had a lot of debate last season regarding when this whole conflict really started. Like, did it start when Viserys named Rhaenyra? Did it start when he went ahead and married Alicent? Did it start when you know Rhaenyra went and had children that do not look very much like Targaryens? Did it start when Aemond went and you know killed Lucerys, whether it was on purpose or not? Like we have we have a sense of, I guess, continuity from that in because you have all these different points where you could say that the blame was laid, but I think once Lucerys finally actually gets killed, it's open season from there because now everybody's trying to do take retaliatory measures, and now it's just like literally I was watching this and I was thinking the underhanded tactics have begun. Like this is because this underhanded tactics have begun. There's more than one way to fight a war. We know this from real life, and we know this even from the story. I think Misaria actually says this. And it's funny to see her stowing away on the ship and being put into a cell at Dragonstone. Do you think we're going to see her again?
I mean, what I will say is I'm happy her accent has changed. That's all I have to say about her. But
That
that
original
accent,
accent was
bruh.
interesting.
No, but she had to come back. She had to come back. I think they did a good job of like she wasn't in the forefront of the story, but I feel like when you're in this story is a lot of political intrigue, and with politics, knowledge is power. So
Right.
who is more powerful than someone who has knowledge? Like she said to Damon when she got captured, she didn't help the Hightower plot, but she benefited off it, by making some moves.
It was all
Uh,
transactional. Can you blame
exactly,
her? It's like
exactly.
my good sis knew what she was getting into.
Exactly, exactly. So it's I'm happier to see her in this season than I was last season. Let's not forget her and Damon had like a whole ass relationship.
Yeah,
The romantic in me is like, oh, they still have harbor, out of the feelings they had for each other, they
I feel
still
like
were
she's not even trying to
together.
see that guy, man.
Nah, bro, she ain't about that life.
Like she saw him and she's just like, oh my god, can somebody throw me back into the sea? I
But
think
why did
that's.
she go there?
I think she was trying to essentially escape King's Landing because it was a bad place for her. And remember, they burned down her brothel.
Yeah,
Yeah, they literally burned down her whole bar, and is like, okay, what's left for me now? Like, I can't just.
I don't know.
Yeah, and at this point, Otto is like, I think she can tell that Otto may not be in power as long as he thinks, because
Man.
I think she's savvy enough to say that like the way Aegon is, he may end up replacing Otto soon, and that's something that I think might happen at some point.
Hmm.
Because I mean, you can see in the Green Council, there's a lot of back and forth. There's a lot of disagreement as to what people should be doing in order to move forward,
Yeah,
and I think that Aegon is probably going to put somebody who is more in line with his bloodlust at some point.
yeah.
So who knows? Maybe Aemond, for example, would become Hand of the King. I mean, they have a lot of trust between each other. So
Well,
um,
they have trust between each other. I don't know if I agree with that. I feel like Aegon, it says trust Aemon, but Aemon is like, I mean, in that conversation that Aemon had with Otto, where Otto was like kind of stroking his ego a little bit, being like, oh, basically the king is trash, and Aemon was like, yeah, the king is trash, so it's he's talked so much about how if he were married to Helena, he would do his duty, and how Aegon isn't fit to rule, and all that kind of stuff. I mean, he's. I feel like
Yeah,
Aemon would never, probably not betray him, but to be like Aemon trusts Aegon, no, Aegon is a waste man. Like
actually, you know what?
it was so prevalent this episode that that man is a waste man.
He
Out here getting
is,
drunk
and
and
he
throwing.
has a ridiculous. Who are those people with him? That posse that he
I
has.
don't know.
Like, who are these guys?
I hope he doesn't make one of them hand because golly,
Oh my god! You know what?
that
Let
would
me.
be
Can
interesting.
I put my tinfoil hat on for a second?
All right, let's go. Let's run it.
Okay, so there is a theory based on what happens in the books that Aegon's children are actually Aemon's
Yes.
because he does not spend that much time with Helena. She said in even in season one that he basically just ignores you, right?
Yeah.
Um, it makes me wonder, like, are those Aemon's kids, and is that why he wouldn't necessarily betray Aegon because he knows that his own children will end up on the throne one day if they play their
Mm,
cards right?
you
It's
said
something
something there.
something I was thinking about, and it makes
You
me
said
wonder.
something there. I mean,
So Aemon is
it's a
essentially
possibility.
invested. He's invested in the idea of Aegon succeeding.
You don't find it hilarious. Well, if that's the case, then Blood and Cheese has a certain level of poeticness to it, because or well, however you conjugate the word poetic, because
They were looking for
it
Aemon
was
that found his
it was
kids.
exactly, it was literally a son for a son. It's like you
Yeah,
kill my son, I kill
I
your
kill your
son.
son.
And
Yeah,
there's something poetic to that, but there's also something that is extra poetic to say that, not poetic, but extra disgusting in the sense that this is a family of three children with one
one of them is
daughter,
in
and
love
the
with.
one
Yeah,
daughter has slept with both brothers. So
yes,
that is
yeah, yeah, yeah.
if your family tree is a
The family tree is a
circle,
circle.
you know
Yeah,
what? You fucked up.
that's
You fucked up, man.
like our
These
greatest quote ever.
motherfuckers. These kids will soon have that jaw. What's the name of that European family that inbred so much that
The
they had like
Habsburg jaw, the Habsburgs.
Habsburg
Yeah,
jaw? Exactly. You'd be like those guys.
I
Yeah.
think. Okay, so there are a bunch of new people that we've seen here. Let's talk about them for a second. Um, I liked the introduction of Alan of Hull.
Alan
He
of Hall.
Alan, yeah. So on the like when Corliss was at the docks and he was talking to
Oh
the man who
yes, yes,
saved him,
yes, yes,
and
yes,
he
yes,
said his
yes.
name. I saw this guy's face, and then he said his name is Alan. I was just like, okay,
Yeah.
I see you. I see you, sir. So Alan is an interesting character who we're going to be seeing more of as the episodes go on. We can't really. It's hard to tell how much they're going to adapt in terms of his role, but I think that he's going to probably build a bit of a relationship with Corliss. What do you think?
I think so too. I think I mean he did note that, or Corliss did note that, that's who saved him, so and he's
Pulled him out the
indebted to
water.
him. Exactly, put him out of the water. So I feel like there's something there. But with all these things, it's early to tell how that kind of relationship will develop. I guess what I'm interested in is to see how that could, because I feel like Corliss is in a place where he's lost both his children,
Hmm.
he's lost his heir. So
The man has
you know,
suffered, bro. He's
man
like
has suffered.
this is what old age has brought me.
And do you know who I blame for all of this? Guess who?
Viserys.
Viserys. It's all of Viserys' fault. Viserys just gave this man headache for nothing, man. Because if Viserys
Oh
had
my
just
god.
respected himself and married that 12-year-old girl, then all of this would have been avoided.
What?
Because exactly, because Corlys would have had children, his grandchildren there, and then it would just have been a more straightforward decision. They could have backed Rhaenyra, blah blah blah. But you know what? I'm gonna put my hands in the air on that one. But there was
That's
another character that
crazy.
got introduced who, to me, I feel like when the duality of or something I like about this podcast is that a lot of times when everybody are discussing, there'll be someone who comes up and like we like the opposite characters in a sense, even though we were both obviously Team Rhaenyra. Well, not obviously, but at least I am Team Rhaenyra. But
It's okay.
you
We're
gravitated.
all team black over here. It's okay. Even everybody listening to this podcast is team black, right?
Oh, if you're
Yasli.
green, block me.
Yeah.
But even the introduction of what's his name, Alan, the name, the guy you just
Yeah, Alan
Alan,
is his
played
name.
by
Yeah.
what's his name, Abubakar, or whatever, I forget his name. But even the introduction of Alan was something that I noticed. But to me, the big introduction was the introduction of Hugh the blacksmith, and that's when I
Yes.
got excited.
No, literally, as soon as he walked in, right? As soon as he
Yep.
walked in, and because I was like, why are they spending time showing us Aegon taking petitions, right? I
Yep.
remember when they did that in the original series with Daenerys, and like, I guess they just wanted to show us like how she rules, what the day to day of actually handling bureaucracy is like.
Yep.
And we see Aegon doing it, and he's obviously not suited for it. He's literally giving the wrong answers at every turn. And Otto is just like, Jesus Christ, bro, seven L's. And he turns around and he's trying to stop this guy from like giving back everything that they need to keep. But when this one guy shows up and he's looking very measured and he's like, "What's your name?" and he said Hugh, I literally went,
I literally,
I
I think even
was
before he said
like,
Hugh, I looked at him and I just saw who that
He
was.
had
I
he
was
had the
like,
look, right? He
oh,
was like, "Yeah."
he had the
He's
look.
not talking about, yeah, it's very hard to get iron. I'm just like, it's okay, bro. It's okay.
Yeah.
Just hold on.
Yeah, but the point we're trying to make is that they're introducing a bunch of minor characters in this show, or this in just this first episode, that I feel like could have a role to play in what's coming. As we've discussed, war is coming. We don't know when. We now know who will be fighting who. It's the blacks and the greens.
Uh huh.
Uh, there's some discourse as to when the war started. Some people would say when what's his face died, Lucerys died, but I always say, like, history. There's no origin in history. It's just one thing that
Mm-hmm.
led to another thing and led to another thing. So
Well
the
said.
war started because humans existed, and it was always going to happen. But yeah, there's a bunch of minor characters. There were two probably more interesting ones that were two characters who I feel could have a role to play in the future. Both who have their separate relationship with either both the blacks and the greens. I feel like they could have a role to play in the wars or the peace to come.
Yeah, I noticed actually that Kristen and Amond spend a lot of time together talking.
Yeah, they
What
do.
do you think of that? What do you think could come of that, if anything?
I think that across the greens there are. The blacks are not, united per se, because their leader Rhaenyra is kind of having a rough time right now. But I feel like the Greens are just very disorganized. You have Otto, who swears he's Tywin Lannister, but he's like Cersei from the books, like a better version of Cersei from the books.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
you have
yeah.
Alicent, who just wants to make peace with her homie, and Loki just wants to be friends with Rhaenyra again, in my opinion. You have
Too late for that,
um,
sis.
it's far too late for that. You have Aegon, who we've been saying is a waste man from time. We have Helena, who's out here. Is Helena a green seer? What are these prophecies? I don't
Maybe
know.
she is because I just that's how this is how I know Ryan Condor has a sense of humor because she's like right out of nowhere she's like beware of rats and I'm just like
Hmm.
oh god.
The rats, the beast beneath the boards. He'll have to
Oh
shut an
god.
eye. She's dropped some bars. But my point is, there's a lot of disorganization within the Greens, and I feel like Kristen Pussy Cole and um
That's never gonna get old.
never gonna get old. Him and Aegon represents the more like brutal side of the Greens, where it's just
Hmm.
like because that guy has Aegon. Aemon has been wanting war for a long time, even though yes, King
He's
Lucerys
very
was a
angry kid,
mistake.
yeah.
He isn't. That's why you shouldn't bully people, bro. Like I feel like that's a school shooter. If I've ever seen one. He got
Genuinely.
bullied when he was a kid, and now he's older and he has power, and now he wants to, enact revenge. And he did raise a point that I wholeheartedly agree with. He's
Which
like, you
is
cannot blame me for starting these things when you literally conspired to steal Rhaenyra's throne. You can't. And in a sense, you can't blame him. But what he said was factual
bars.
because he was like, you guys, what did you expect? We steal her throne and she's just gonna be like, okay, bye. No, that
Like
doesn't
they are
happen.
aware, right? Like there's a lot of cognitive dissonance and like self-aggrandizing and gaslighting going on here. Whereas like
Exactly.
these people have convinced themselves that this is the will of God. Like it's like you guys know, right? Like you know that this guy like you know this guy should not be on this throne. You're aware.
Well,
Like you
no,
were all
Alicent
there.
doesn't. Allison genuinely feels that
Alicent is on confirmation bias, fam. This is
Allison
confirmation
genuinely
bias. She
feels.
heard whatever she felt she needed to hear in order to give purpose. Because let's look at what Alicent has gone through in this life. I feel for her, to be honest. I told you last season, right? She was a young lady, like vibrant, full of life, and then she turned around and she became a bitter auntie. And I I sympathize, but there are certain
I
things
don't.
she should have done. There's certain things she should have done in order to make sure that everything actually stayed in check. For example, she should have made sure that she actually kept her relationship with Rhaenyra. She shouldn't have been so judgmental of her, and it has something to do with, I guess, the way her values are structured, because of the way her family's values are structured. And I guess this is something that I'll talk about more in coming episodes as we get a sense of where Alicent stands now. But she has essentially given her whole life towards all of this. Like, her whole purpose in life became, the king needs a male heir. This is your job now. Like,
Mm,
this is essentially what she did. And what did she do? She brought forth a bunch of them. So
mhm.
well done to her. And she did her best to raise them
Mm.
in, an environment of excess and lack of discipline. But I'm not a parent, so I guess I'm not going to start judging there. But I I think now that her children have kind of grown up and she's done that, she's brought forth male heirs. It's almost like she has nothing left to offer. She may feel that way, at least. I think just looking at the psychology of this character and how they would have written her and what she must be feeling, I think she's looking for new life. I think that's part of why we see her having this whole relationship with Kristen, right? Because she never really enjoyed being with Viserys that much. Like, she liked his company, but she definitely didn't like it physically in that sense. She felt she was doing a duty. But now it's like she's in her quote unquote grown woman era. Like, she has a boyfriend. The guy is like basically one of them bad boys who gets stuff done. Um, she had all her kids are out the house, even though they all live under the same roof. But basically, they're out the house. Like, she doesn't have anything. She doesn't really have much to give other than to direct Aegon, and even in that, she feels like she's being undermined at every turn because
Mm.
now all these men are trying to not listen to her, and the only person that's really in her corner at this point is Kristen. So I think she's at a point where she's trying to find that new sense of purpose in her life and establish a foothold in what the future would be. She wants to have a stake in things. And I feel like she has a sense of guilt over everything that's happened. Um, but I don't know if there's any real way for her to reconcile that now. What do
See,
you think?
I hear all of that, and I think what she should do is just actually go and soak some Gary, because that is her business. I ain't trying to intellectualize that home girl. She was literally sleeping with her former best friend's man. Let's start with that, and let's move on from the fact that she's sleeping with her best friend's man after falling out with after sleeping with her best friend's dad, after falling
She
out of
married the guy.
favor.
Let's and it wasn't her choice. Let's cut her some slack there.
Well, she wasn't her choice. So when her dad was like, "Oh, go see to the king. He's grieving."
She felt she was doing a duty. Like, she didn't. I don't think she even realized the kind of
Dude,
manipulation he had going on at
what's
that
that
point.
behind you? Oh, it's a green plant. I knew it. You're a green plant.
This nigga. Oh my
Get
god.
about it, bro. Get about it. There's no justification, no fraternizing with the enemy here. She
Uh,
literally, her follow with Rhaenyra started because Rhaenyra hooked up with Kristen Cole. She is hooking up with Kristen Cole.
that is true. I have to give you
Bro,
that one. Yeah.
that guy's out here. You're out here, like, imagine beefing with your best friend because of community dick. Man, you guys weren't even that close friends to start with. I can't.
Oh my
And
god.
Rhaenyra probably has some blame here too, but she's unfortunately blameless. So yeah, Alison, sorry. And your children are useless too. Yeah, she's out here just making Clubfoot jealous. Poor guy.
Oh,
Poor guy is something bad.
speaking of her children, actually, you mentioned that Helena might essentially be the prophet that nobody's paying attention to here.
Yeah.
Um, Let's talk about blood and cheese. You start.
Okay. So I'm gonna put my my technically hat on for a second.
Okay.
There are two versions of Blood and Cheese, as far as I'm concerned. There's the show version and there's the book version.
Because they did deviate, right?
It deviate. I mean, obviously the end goal was the same, but I feel like, and this, well, I don't know how people are going to react towards the Blood and Cheese thing, but I felt like what happened in the show was tame in comparison to what happened
Very
in the
tame.
books.
Oh my god.
And I don't understand why that. I mean, I think I understand why that choice was made, but I feel like they could have had a chance to actually have some people be team green if they executed Blood and Cheese the way it happened.
Yeah.
Because I feel like some people would have been like, no, Rhaenyra, what happened to your child was sad, but even though you don't know this, it was an accident. What you did, or I guess what Damon did, that was messed up, you know?
I think, yeah, the show needs to make sure, I think, that they're not just telegraphing this idea of let's all support Rhaenyra. Because
Yeah,
we should be supporting Rhaenyra in a sense. She's been wronged here,
yeah.
right? But once these underhanded tactics begin, it really becomes a moral gray zone, the whole place, because everybody starts to do things where like morality is genuinely in question. You don't even
Hmm.
know who to support anymore. Like TV is done in a bit of a different way, and they like to kind of give people the answer a bit more than books do. For example, in the original series, Tyrion is way more of a morally great character in the books. He's probably not even that great a guy,
Yeah,
but in the
yeah,
show,
he's
they
not.
basically make him a hero, and
Yeah.
that's kind of fine because they still do all the things. But I mean, it's we have issues down the line where it turns out that like he meets Daenerys and suddenly gets a dose of the dum dum juice. His brain doesn't
Well,
work anymore.
I can't forgive him for
But that's not the podium we're on today. What we
that.
are on today is this idea that they felt the need to. I, I don't know. I don't want to accuse them of feeling the need to make it more of like a let's all support the blacks thing because obviously what the blacks have done here is wrong. What Damon has done is wrong. But
Eh,
I agree with you that what they did that the way it happened in the books would have probably given people more sympathy towards the Greens or at least towards Helena because right. So let's actually just since the episode has aired at this point, let's just tell you guys how this goes down. First of all, it's a structural thing and a character thing because Aegon and Helena actually have three children at this point in the books. They have the twins that you've seen, Jaehaerys and Jaehaera, but they also have another child named Maelor. And when Blood and Cheese get there, right? First of all, they're a lot more menacing. This whole thing of like Cheese being like a very scared guy, and you know, kind of Blood, Damon's friend, being the one to sort of steer things and make sure everything goes down is not exactly the way I would have expected it, but I do think it works here. At least that part works. However, what does end up happening is they ask Helena to choose. They point to both of her sons and they say, pick the one who's going to die.
wait. First of all, just to even walk you back, they wake everybody up.
Yeah, they
So
do. They
the
wake
children
everybody.
are awake. Like everybody in
Yeah,
that village is
that's true.
awake.
Everybody's awake. Everybody's sitting scared. Helena is there with the kids. Then they grab the two boys. They put her and Jaehaera on the other side, and you know they point at the two of them, and they're like,
Actually,
"Which
wait,
which
let's
of
even
these two
walk
should
this
die?"
back a step further. They go to Alicent's room and they
Hmm.
tie up and gag Alicent. And they know that Helena,
Yeah, you're right. These guys they were very
yeah,
active.
they were active. They went into Helena's room, sorry, Alicent's room, and they captured her, they gagged her, tied her up.
Hmm.
Then they knew that every single night, Helena brings all the children to come and say good night. And I don't know if
Yep.
they killed anybody in the initial scuffle, but once
Hmm.
Helena comes in, they shut the door, and then, okay, then you can
And
continue.
then this happens, right? So
Yeah.
everybody's awake. Everybody's fully cognizant of what's happening. The children are very scared, and they threaten them, not to cry or like people are gonna die, all that stuff. They point at the two boys and they're like, choose which one of them is going to die. And obviously, this is crazy. Like, not Helena having to deal with like Sophie's choice or something, right? This
Hmm.
is this is too much. So she doesn't know what to do, and then she points at one of them. She points at Miller, I believe, because he is the younger one, and he would not remember what's going on because like it would just be, let me just say, it would be more of a mercy to him because his life hadn't progressed as far as Jaehaerys and Jaehaera yet. Blood and Cheese then proceed to kill Jaehaerys and take his head, and they tell her, now the one who is left is going to always know that you chose him to die.
Literally,
And I was just like,
oh
my
my
God.
god, what, he was traumatized, like literally Milo or
That
whatever his
was a
name is,
wrap. Like
literally.
Helena was like, I mean, we hardly see her show too much emotion in this show, but I think she would have if they had done it like that in this episode, because the way she would have been just beside herself with guilt as she was escaping was crazy. I mean, in the show, like they do kill Jaehaerys, and she points right at him, which is
Mm.
kind of interesting, right? Then she carries Jaehaera, which I kind of expected that though, because I think she has more of a relationship with Jaehaera, and it's interesting that she wouldn't really like protect the air in that sense, but it shows that Helena has different priorities. So she runs away with Jaehaera, goes to Alicent, who is, on top of Kristen Cole. And then I think it becomes an issue of how are we going to deal with it from here. Like I'm looking forward to the fallout because like she said, rats did come to
Hmm.
cause issues, and we heard a lot of like cutting and slicing.
Oh my god,
And
that was so brutal.
yeah, because I realized they didn't just kill this guy, right? They tried to cut off his head and take it
Hmm.
away with them, which is insane. They're doing this to like a
Hmm.
toddler.
Hmm. Yeah, it
Yeah,
was
that was very
it
brutal.
was it was
I,
brutal. I wish they had just done the whole exactly how it happened, like play by play in the books. But I understand why they didn't. I do think that, like, okay, Helena to me is like every time she breathes, I'm like, oh, what's the symbolism of her breathing? Is it because Lucerys breathed his last breath? I don't know. So I feel like she knew in that moment that, like, just give them Triceres and let me get my, like. There's no reason why two children must die if one is going
Mhm.
to die. So I think that's
Yeah,
why and the way she pointed, and she didn't look at blood, she looked at cheese, as like, no, like, you, I know that you know that I'm not lying. That's the
yeah,
air.
and he did
And he did, and I kind of, I was like, okay, you know, he did, because something I always marveled when I read this part of the books is, why did they just kill all of them? Like, I know it's a son for a son, because Damon has been out here talking, oh, you should have burnt all of them down, you should
because
have done
psychological
this.
warfare. Because psychological warfare. Because my goodness, I mean, they established the whole thing from even from the beginning of the episode where like Aegon is very invested in Jaehaerys. He wants to hang out with him,
Hmm.
bring him to small council meetings because
Hmm.
he's dumb. I don't know why you're
Hmm.
doing that, but he tries to look for the kid. He sees that that's Jaehaera. He's looking for Jaehaerys, and then she's like beware of rats, and then he's like, oh, the queen is an interesting one. It's like instead of you to listen to her, like
Listen,
beware of the rats, but whatever. um I think this whole idea of having to tell the kids apart, that's what they leaned into here. Since they didn't have Malor, it's like, let's just lean into this idea of, we have to figure out who is who. So they use like, okay, do we have the right child? Whereas, as opposed to which son do you want to die?
yeah, yeah,
I think that and I agree, like if they had done it that way, like the way it was in the books, then we'd be in a situation where people would be feeling a real sense of discomfort with what has just happened, and it would be kind of hard to look at for them to look at Damon the same way. But then again, Lucerys has been killed, and it's like you want to be angry about one thing, but then you're reminded of the other thing, and then that other thing reminds
hmm.
you of this other thing that happened, and now we're at a point where like everybody's just in the wrong,
Oh, that's
and
history. Yeah,
it's a little crazy.
yeah, it's a lot crazy. It's a lot crazy, but I don't know. I'm just obsessed with the you heard that your mama wants you dead and then kills the other one. I wish that some part of that brutality had been preserved. But
Mhm.
that being said, I feel like when I first saw it, I was like, no, they should have done it the other way. But after thinking about it, sleeping on it, I'm like, yeah, no, I still see the vision. I
This
still see the
works well
vision.
for the show because they didn't have Miller. I think it achieves the same effect. Let's just see how audiences kind of respond to it over time, and we'll see how Aegon responds to it too. Because I mean, how do you think they're going to show I guess the aftermath of this moving forward?
Ooh, that's an interesting one. I think. is going to probably be a small. I think that if they how they should do it is actually be through Rhaenyra. Like
Hmm.
Rhaenyra is the one who is like told, "Oh no, look what we did," and then I want to see what her reaction would be because I really don't know how she'll react.
She'd be
They could
like, "Oh,
also
you guys
do
killed a baby."
exactly, but like shit, y'all killed my baby, so
Yeah,
yeah,
I don't know. I feel like everybody will have a different reaction to this. I mean, Kristen is gonna have something to say. Otto will have something to say.
yeah,
Allison will have something to say. Aegon, Aemond, right? Like even Damon, I don't think he was expecting this. But then again, in the show, they kind of made it seem as though he might have been
he
because
was.
they asked
Hmm.
like, what should we do if we don't find Aemond?
Exactly,
And then they showed silence. They showed Damon time thinking about it. And they don't show us his
exactly.
answer. So I'm like, did he tell them to do this instead?
1,000%. Those are good employees. They always ask the boss, okay, what's the plan B? What's the plan C? I'm sure they were like, if you can't kill any of them, just go and ride one of the dragons, go and do this, go and do that. They had a plan. But yeah, it was a brutal and something I just keep thinking is this is just episode one. What's gonna
Hmm.
happen in the penultimate episode? I believe there are 8 episodes this season, right? Or is
Yeah,
it
I think
yeah.
that they said they're doing eight,
So,
and I wonder why. I guess they have a place where they want to stop, and they don't want to kind of mess with the pacing too much. Maybe that's
yeah.
why. I would hope that they bring more in future seasons if if they feel the need to.
I feel like
Um,
it's like they have a story to tell, so they should tell their story, you know? And this is unlike Game of Thrones, the work is completed, so they don't have to like invent stuff. They can adapt, and if they choose to deviate, they can take risks like with Blood and Cheese.
yeah.
So yeah, I'm excited. If this is and this is just episode one, what's gonna happen in episode seven? I can only theorize, but we can talk offline about that.
Yeah, we're gonna actually even wrap up in a moment, and just so you guys know, we're gonna stay on actually after we close this and discuss some more spoilery stuff. So definitely stay after the outro if you want to hear that. But I guess for the moment before we close, were there any interesting things that you enjoyed in terms of just the way the episode was done, like visual effects and stuff? For example, I really like when they showed Rhaenyra camping out and she's not looking good, right? She's clearly been
Yeah,
here for a while, and she gets a tiny glimpse of like, oh, Lucerys might be here, and
yeah.
then she flies over on that dragon and like she's like a skirt skirt. Like I was
The
like,
way she hopped off that dragon
the
was
way she
smooth.
hopped up that dragon
It
was
was
insane.
smooth. It was
I was
very
like,
smooth.
wow,
I
this
have to
is
give it
somebody
to
who's
her.
clearly used to like flying a
Hmm.
dragon. I
Uh-huh.
mean, and all those
It's
people were
literally in my
scared too.
notes. Hmm.
It's easy to look at those people and be like, "Oh, why are you guys running?" It's like, but you would every who would not run? Like back then in the world, like they see dragons and like they'd be like, "Oh, dragon!" Like that's not something we hear in Westeros of like Game of Thrones time because dragons are gone, right? And this
Yeah,
story is partly to show us how that happened.
yeah,
But yeah, like I think that was interesting. The character moments, like Emma Darcy was doing such an amazing job in terms of just the portrayal of grief here
yeah,
and the way the episode took its time to show how like snappy she was something that I really enjoyed.
yeah,
And another thing for me was I'm gonna say the the conversation actually between Damon and Rhaenys, where she's trying to show restraint, like she's been patrolling this whole time. She's trying to come back, sit down, like soak her feet a little bit, and then this guy's like, "Get back on your dragon, let's go to King's
yeah.
Landing." It's
You're
like,
not
and she's
king,
like, "Are
bro.
you mad?" Yeah, she's like, "Oh, that's an order." It's like, "Would that you were king." I like that. I like that they're still kind of showing us this idea of Damon's desire to be proximal to power in one way or another.
Yeah,
Even though I don't think he would really have wanted to be king like that, but I think showing that as something that maybe showing that as something that might hurt him a little bit, especially now that we know from episode 10 that Viserys never told him about the prophecy. Maybe
yeah,
that's kind of still bothering him. So yeah, those are a few things that kind of stood
yeah.
out to me. What anything for you?
I think for me, it's just Winterfell. It's good to be home.
Yeah,
Good to
true,
be home.
true.
It was nice to
Sure
see
does.
Winterfell again. And it's I guess Helena again. It's Winterfell and Helena for me. She's such an enigma in terms of the
Yeah.
prophecy, and I think like one of the things that I like about the world that George has created is it's fantasy, but it's light fantasy, So it's all the little things at the fringe that make it, it's not too heavy where you're talking about like Aragon where it's just so much sci-fi, and it's not like you
Yeah.
know non-existent. So I think those are my two. And I have to ask you, who do you think played the game the best this episode?
Um. Yeah. I was gonna say, should we bring back our old segment? Who played the game best? You know what? I'm gonna say Amond
Okay.
because he's biding his time. And this is an episode where I expected everybody to be slapping him in the face. And somehow, he has managed to actually stay in the background. He's managed to, you know, not necessarily be in everybody's good graces, but he's kind of watching and waiting. And he's even building a place for himself on the council,
Yeah.
right? Everybody knows that he's the strongest power in Westeros at this point, he and Vigor,
Hmm.
right? And he's using that to his advantage because he knows that he's essentially indispensable. So he's really
Yep.
just sort of shoring up his own resources, and it'll be cool to see what he does with that. So I'm going to say, for the sake of strategy and patience and being measured, Amond is probably playing the game best right now, in my opinion. What about you?
Okay. I say Hugh the blacksmith. He managed
Already?
to,
Okay.
yep. I'll say he managed to get a nice payday from a weak king
That is true.
by saying the right words. I'm all for, not capitalism, but for cheating the man. So yeah,
LOL.
he stole from he not stole, but he played the king and got a nice payday. So shout out to him.
Good, good, good. Um, I guess things to look forward to. And I guess this is something we can also discuss once we get into more spoilery territory after the outro. What Larry Strong, Clubfoot, is working on. I know he's been interviewing a lot of quote unquote spies in the
Hmm.
castle. So and also what Rhaenyra's team is going to be doing from here
Hmm.
on out. But yeah, that's at face value. That's gonna do it for us today, folks. Thank you so much for sticking with us and listening up until the end. If you like what you've heard, definitely rate and review. We're going to be back every Sunday to cover the episodes right as they air. So as soon as they come out on HBO, Crave, wherever you're watching, um, the episodes will be right there waiting for you, so you can hear our takes. And we're looking forward to the rest of this season because if there's anything we know, it's going to be a really hot one. So yeah,
Hmm.
for now, signing off. See you guys next week.